Welcome, everyone.
Sorry.
Lots of familiar names, Adrian.
Yeah, oh, great. I don't know. The view I have on is not letting me see everybody. So
Well, you can see them flowing through the chats. We got some people from California, from Houston, from Denver, Louisiana, Maine.
Hello.
We got New York.
San Francisco, Tucson, Seattle. Should we just let everybody come in and settle in for a second before we start?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Doucement, doucement, c'est pour la France. Alors.
Doucement, doucement. Yes, everybody in the chat is putting their, I can see Mark Jacobs. That's who I see at the moment. Well, okay. I'm gonna say welcome. I'm gonna say welcome to the second quarter North American Expats in France Financial Forum. I know that is a mouthful, but that's about what we're gonna have here today. We are, as usual, with Brian Dunhill from Dunhill Financial. Brian, there he is. Yes.
Nice to hear.
I am Adrian Leeds with the Adrian Leeds Group, and we have a very special guest with us, Kelly Kutchen, with Moneycorp in the Florida office. And on the agenda for this particular forum, we're going to be discussing the direction of currency markets, opening a bank account in France, the timeline for transferring money to make a purchase in France, and how to best minimize the cost and risk of currency exchange. And that's where Kelly's going to come in. But first up on the agenda for tonight's 1 hour session is Mr. Brian Dunhill. Take it away.
Thanks, Adrian. And it's not just going to be me. Anya's going to be joining me. Anya Barzal has joined our team, and she's our lead financial planner. So we're really excited to have her. And we're going to break down a little bit of the past history of currency markets, and then give some of our predictions going forward. But to get to the predictions going forward, we need to really dive into what happened in the past. And that's where it gets, to me, really interesting, because if you think back to World War II, essentially we started to have a gold standard in the currency markets. So we had this nice peg currency. That went all the way up until the Nixon administration, when the currency markets got manipulated, or the French said that the Americans were manipulating things. And so Nixon decided to go off the gold standard. We had a nice period of time, as you can see, a nice big drop of 27% in the US dollar for a period of time. And that was where we really started as a US currency to global currencies.
With the devaluation of the dollar from coming off the gold standard, we saw a lot of inflation. And the only way to react was that Volcker, the head of the Fed at the time, had to raise interest rates to the tune of 20% in 1981. Imagine paying 20% on a mortgage right now versus just a few percentage points. That's really huge. So when Volcker did increase the rates, that led to a large increase in the US dollar by about 36%.
We had a unification of some European countries. This is pre-EU. This is the Plaza Accords, and then the unification of the Benelux region, with the combination and the view of the predecessor of the euro. That led again to dollar weakness, or what would become euro strength in that period of time. That led to further unifications and a further decline in the euro.
Which didn't make us happy.
And then in around 1995, that was really followed, that decline in the dollar was followed by the dot-com bubble. And that was the stock market bubble created by excessive speculation of internet-related companies in the late 1990s, and a period of just massive growth related to the adoption of internet. And as a result, the dollar went up by about 29%.
The next decade was quite interesting, as essentially the euro came in line, And the more unification of currencies meant that the dollar went through further weakness. I'm just starting to figure out that Anya's the good cop each time and I'm the bad cop each time. So essentially,
Brian.
So essentially all the way going to the financial crisis, we went into dollar weakness again, another decade of such.
And after that, there was a time from about 2008 through 2020 when we had tons of instability in the euro. If you remember, from Greece wanting to leave to many other countries wanting to leave the EU, and the UK finally leaving recently. So the last 12 years really led to a weakening euro, and weakened euro led to dollar strength. It was more of a flight to safety that caused another 20% increase in the dollar.
And that leads us to this last year. The last year has been a little bit of craziness, if we can say the least. And since August, we've seen the dollar coming down again. Now, most analysts would expect this going forward, but we have to look at the valuations to figure out exactly why they would think about this.
Yeah, so speaking of valuing currencies, the term purchasing power parity comes to mind. And it's really a term that economists use that calculates the relative value of different currencies. And we could certainly go into how that's calculated, but that would be way too boring. So we bring up the Big Mac index, and that's more of a fun and informal way of measuring the purchasing power parity between two currencies. So it's really done by comparing the price of a McDonald's hamburger in the US versus other countries. We can then establish the disparity between purchasing power of different nations' currencies. So the following chart that you see here shows that the Swiss franc and Norwegian crown on the left side are really overvalued relative to the dollar. And that's in Switzerland and Norway, that's where Big Macs are expensive, right? On the other side of this chart, you see Russia. It's the Russian ruble is greatly undervalued, so you can purchase a lot more hamburgers over there. But before you pack up your bags and move to Russia, consider Poland, which is also on that list, just a little to the left of Russia. It's much nicer, and hamburgers here are still inexpensive as compared to the US. And I'm very biased because that's where I'm from.
Gosh, this conversation is making me hungry. We picked the wrong time to be talking about hamburgers. Now, going forward in the next couple of years, actually, no, stay on that slide, Kim. Thanks, bud. What you'll really notice is that there's so many countries over to the right and so few countries to the left. So when most analysts on Wall Street are predicting dollar weakness, it's not because there's the expectation that America is going through a hard time. It's more looking through these last 50 years and saying, when you have an expensive currency, it comes back down. Notice that each of the trends were really 10, 15-year trends in one direction before they convert back to the other direction. So when we have an extremely expensive dollar, whether we're going by the official economist version of PPI or the more fun version of the Big Mac index, essentially what goes up should come down. And so therefore, as we normalize after this crisis, after a decade of people going for a flight to safety in those US dollars, we would expect for more euro strength in the next couple of years and more dollar weakness. So now we really want to unravel how we can use the different tools and different mechanisms through Adrian, Kelly's support. So I will pass it on to Adrian, who you all know and love.
Thank you, Brian. Well, okay, one of the biggest questions we get, of course, is, how you're going to open a bank account in France, which is no easy task anymore. You basically don't even need a bank account until you own a property and you have things that you have to be paying for in France. Otherwise, if you're just traveling here, you can extract cash from an ATM directly out of your US accounts. But in order to open a bank account in France, you pretty much have to be present in front of them in order to do that, with the exception of HSBC, because HSBC does an online on their site, an ability to apply for a French bank account, believe it or not. And we have had lots of clients who are successful with that. Now, Brian, you might have some commentary though on HSBC.
Absolutely. I'm looking at their building right now from my from my window. HSBC, both the U.S. unit and the French unit, are going to be sold off from the HSBC parent company, and it's going for an astronomical value of €1. So we might see some changes to HSBC France. I probably will get some hate mail from their headquarters now because of saying that. Because naturally, the only way that you can deal with a bank that has an undercapitalization is to reduce costs or increase the funding inside of there. So expect changes, expect a lot of news for any of you HSBC account holders. It won't be the same thing.
Okay, but my question to you would be, if you can get an account with HSBC now by going online, the risk is just that it would end up being with another bank, but you'd still have the account.
Absolutely. You'll get a laugh out of this. The biggest risk is that you're going to get poor service with a French entity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you get really poor service with HSBC. I don't recommend
it. With every French bank. So. Well,
no, but HSBC, from the information I have from our clients, is worse than the others. Okay. But it's the only bank that at the moment you can open an account without having to be present. Otherwise, a lot of the other French banks don't want to talk to us anyway because of Fdic. And we've certainly talked about Fdic lots. And if you guys don't know what it is, look it up, FATCA, Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. Those are regulations imposed by the US on foreign financial institutions. And therefore, it's expensive for the banks to handle US customers and a pain in the neck. And so a lot of the banks won't even open accounts for us anymore. All that being said, we do have relationships with banks in Paris and in Nice where we can introduce you and open a bank account for you. It costs about €10 a month to have an account, and that includes checkbook, debit card, internet access, and all the basic services that the banks offer. And, a bank like CIC or Banque Populaire, they have branches all over town, so it's easy to do business with them. Okay, Cam, you want to go to the next slide? Okay, now, one thing is that if you keep less than $10,000 in a foreign bank account, therefore you can avoid reporting this money to the IRS. Otherwise, you have to report it on an FBAR. But don't be frightened by that. It just means that they want to know you've got money in an account. It's not taxed by the IRS. They just want to know it exists. So, and you have to report if you had more than $10,000 value in that account at any one time. So, as I said, it's good to kind of keep it under that bar, but it's not absolutely necessary.
Just to add to that, Adrian, it's not one bank account. It's all your foreign bank accounts in aggregate. So you can't
yes.
3 or 4 banks and be over that limit.
Well, I mean, but how many bank accounts in France do you need? I mean, the less is more in this case. Okay.
I completely agree with you.
Absolutely.
I'm more thinking if you have one down in Spain, one in Italy, and one in France.
Okay, well, that person needs his head examined. Because that would be a lot to maintain. But anyway, I'm just joking. Let's go on. Cam, okay. So here's the timeline of when you might need money in France. If you're going to make a property purchase, first you make an offer, and it goes from the offer to the signing of a pre-sale agreement. When you sign a pre-sale agreement, the notaire expects you to put in a deposit of 10%. Now, I will say that you can often negotiate for holding a deposit of only 5%, not 10. But the 10% deposit is the default amount. So should you default, you'd end up having to come up with the 10% anyway. So that's your first transfer. And the transfer needs to go from your bank at home, not your bank in France, directly to the notaire. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later. Now, once you sign the presale agreement, there is a 10-day cancellation. You can actually retract your purchase within 10 days after signing the presale agreement. So there's a lot of consumer protection built in. From that point, there's usually 2 to 3 months lag time between the signing of the presale agreement and the activant in order to secure the mortgage. So you're going to need that time to do all the work to get your mortgage, if of course you are getting financing. If you're paying cash, you can probably close sooner. And then you will need the money for the final activant. So you're going to transfer the rest of the money to the notaire for the final deed. And that's when you get your keys. Okay, next. Now, the 10% deposit is held in escrow with the notaire. And as I said, the seller might accept 5%, but 10% is the default. I don't recommend transferring the money directly from your home account to the French bank and then trying to get it from the French bank to the notaire, because again, you might have to be present to make that transfer. It's better to go directly from your home account to the notaire using a currency broker such as Moneycorp. And then I know that Kelly is going to talk about making a forward buy, which I think is on my next slide. So at the time of closing, the notaire will give you the exact amount you'll need for the closing. And until that time, you can take advantage of a forward buy, which Kelly will explain, in order to get the best rate of exchange. Because as the exchange rates are fluctuating all the time, the idea is to lock something in so that you don't have the risk of it suddenly becoming more expensive than you thought it was going to be. And again, use the broker to go directly to the notaire, not the French bank. I had one situation with a client who thought she was going to need all the money in France. So she transferred a huge sum of money into her French bank account that I had helped her open. She did not tell us she was transferring this money in. When she went to apply for a loan, a mortgage, the mortgage broker, submitted the application to several banks. And when the banks saw that she had this huge sum of money in a competitive bank, they declined the mortgage. So that's just one of the reasons why you don't want to do that. The other is that the notaire is going to ask for an attestation from the bank to prove that it is your personal account. And that is, I think, for money laundering purposes. So, okay, next slide. And this is just a sample of what's called a RIB, an R-I-B, a relevé d'identité bancaire. It has all the numbers of your bank account. You're going to be asked for this a lot anytime you set up your utilities. So with electricity company, your internet company, whatever, they're going to want to extract your invoices, basically your payments, directly from your bank account. And this is the document that you're going to give them. It's called a RIB. So hold on to that. And it's the IBAN. Sorry, you can go back. Yeah. So there's the IBAN. There is the BIC, which we call a SWIFT number in the States, the BIC. And then in France, you'll see that the IBAN is made up of the banque numbers, the guichet numbers, the account numbers, the key, the clé, and that makes up the full IBAN number. Okay. Next. So just the idea of being smart about how you take advantage of managing the currency exchange rate so that you can eliminate the risk. And the way to do that is to lock in the rates whenever you can, so that when you transfer the money, it's at the most advantageous rate. And I know Kelly's going to have lots to say about all of this. And so I think for me, that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm assuming it's my time to kick off here. So thank you so much for that. What I'm going to do is kind of dissect a little bit what both Brian and Adrian have already touched upon. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. As they mentioned, my name's Kelly Kutchen. I am the country manager for Moneycorp here in the United States. I have been with the company for nearly 15 years now. And it's been my passion to help people buy and sell real estate around the world and helping them save money along the way. So hopefully I can help you all do the same. Things have changed dramatically, I'd say, over the last 15 years. I'm based in Orlando, Florida, if you can't tell by the little sign behind me. And for probably the first 10 years of my career with Moneycorp, I was heavily involved with helping a massive amount of Brits buy second homes here in Florida. But that's shifted quite significantly. And I'd say that about 75, if not more % of my time now is helping Americans actually look at purchasing abroad, which is super exciting just to watch things evolve and just see how much things have changed. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off here. On the next slide, there we go. So Moneycorp is actually a UK-based company. We've been trading in the foreign exchange world since 1979. Last year, we traded over $48 billion in the currency market in over 120 different currency pairs. So whilst we can trade 120 different currencies, there are unfortunately some currencies out there that we are unable to transact with. But the good news, the euro, the Canadian dollar, the US dollar, your British pound, all of the major currencies are certainly on our list of tradable currencies. We have teams around the world in 10 countries. Actually, I think we need to update that to 11 as we do now have offices in Canada as well, which is very exciting. And then we're regulated. We're regulated the way that we need to be regulated, dependent on the customer that we're dealing with, right? So here in the US, we're certainly regulated by FinCEN and the FCA, and we are licensed to do business with clients in all states in the US. All right, so just an overview here. If you were not considering using a currency exchange broker, here's kind of what you would anticipate to happen when transferring funds internationally. As Adrian mentioned, even from the French perspective, the US has a lot of the same or similar rules into place. So if you are needing to do an international transfer, you would definitely be expected to come into your branch to sit down with a banker themselves to sign paperwork to initiate a wire transfer. You would also be charged a fee, right? This is kind of the easy fee though. This is the transparent fee. So the bank is going to likely charge you an international transfer fee somewhere in the range of $35 to $65, right? Maybe not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but again, an international transfer fee to say the least. You would just get the exchange rate on that day, right? So when you go in and you actually say, I'm ready to transfer money, you get what you get. You get the rate of exchange that the bank can offer you on that day. But here's the kicker. The exchange rate that they offer you is likely going to be about 4 to 8% off of what the true rate of exchange is. So this is where the banks actually are making a substantial amount of money. And again, that's a hidden cost to you. They might say it's only going to cost you $35 to send this transfer, but the reality is they may be making $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 just on the actual currency exchange profit. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a future slide.
Kelly, don't you just love when they say, oh, but there are no fees?
Yes, I do love when they say that. And I actually encourage clients to set up an account with Moneycorp, get a quote from us, and then immediately contact their bank and get a quote from them, because one of two things happen. One, they hear what the bank will quote them and they hang up on them and they're so grateful that people like Adrian have introduced them to me. Or two, the bank actually says, well, the department that tells us the exchange rates is currently closed. I'm not really sure what the exchange rate is. And you will get kind of these fluffy answers again until such a time that you actually go in there to do the transfer, and then you're stuck with whatever they present at the time. So we want to avoid that from happening. But again, similar to the rules in France, the United States Patriot Act does state that you need to be physically present in the branch in order to do an international transfer. Other things that you should ask your banks, however, before you leave the US to go view properties, is ask your bank about online access, right? If you do need to access your bank from overseas, is there any arrangements they can help make you aware of prior to you departing? Ask about what your daily, monthly, weekly limits are. Is there a different limit online versus if you call them versus if you visit them? And again, if they say, yes, you can have access to your account when you're overseas, but you need a specific PIN, then make sure that you arrange that prior to you leaving, because this can unfortunately catch you off guard. But the good news is that with Moneycorp, we can kind of avoid a lot of these things. And I'll kind of walk you through that on the next slide. All right, so here's where we kind of jump into the detail and just kind of show you a graph or, some visuals to help you understand why you would want to use Moneycorp versus your bank with transferring funds overseas. And this isn't just about the, $50 international transfer fee. It's about the rate of exchange itself. So in this example here, we've got someone that's buying a property in France for 412,000 euros. Again, for some reason, they weren't told about Moneycorp, and so they considered just going directly to their bank. The bank offered them a rate of 1.24, meaning that property is going to cost them $510,880 to purchase that property in France. Exact same moment in time, the client calls us to ask for our rate of exchange. We're able to get it for 1.20, meaning the same property is going to cost you only $494,000. So just by calling around and using a currency exchange broker versus the bank, we saved you over $16,000. Or in other words, we prevented the bank from making $16,000 on your international transfer. You wouldn't have to worry about paying international wire fees. Our bank accounts are here in the United States, so you would simply do a domestic payment from your US dollar account into your Moneycorp US dollar account. We would facilitate the exchange into euros, and then we can make that transfer into a European account on your behalf. Also, when setting up an account with Moneycorp, which there's no cost or obligation to do, we give every customer of ours a personal currency exchange dealer. So it becomes the dealer's responsibility to monitor the exchange rate on your behalf. If you're targeting a specific rate of exchange that you want to achieve before you transfer your funds, let the dealer stay up at night and watch that exchange rate for you, and obviously make you aware if we start to approach that rate, so that then you can proceed with booking into that rate of exchange. And as Adrian mentioned, we do have the ability to offer a forward contract, which effectively means we can offer you today's exchange rate for up to 2 years in advance. So if you find your property right now, but you're not going to actually close on that property for 3, 6, 9 months, but you're happy with today's exchange rate, and through speaking with your currency dealer, you anticipate that the rate could potentially move against you, then we would suggest that you lock into the rate and eliminate that risk altogether of the exchange rate fluctuating against you throughout that period of time. It's free to do. To book a forward contract, you would simply need to deposit 10% with Moneycorp, so 10% of the total amount that you want to transfer in the future, but that 10% does offset your total amount to be transferred, so it's not a fee per se. All right, so Brian kind of touched on the fact that there's like this 10-year window of wave of which we see exchange rates fluctuate. But even within a day or a week or a month, we're going to see little fluctuations. And so we want to make sure that we help you take advantage of those positive rate movements along the way. They may not be dramatic fluctuations, but even a 1 to 2 cent movement on 100,000, 200,000, you get the point transaction, is actually a substantial cost difference. So just be sure that you're working with somebody early on, right? Even if this purchase is maybe a year off, a year and a half, 2 years, there's no harm in starting the conversation with Moneycorp, getting an overview of where things are at now, and then of course, keeping us abreast of your plans in hopes that we can get you the best rate of exchange within the time frame that you're working with. So I'm going to show you a little graph about what I'm talking about here as well. Oh, you can go ahead. All right, so in this instance, we are going to purchase a property with Adrian for 356,500 euros.
Oh,
And I
that
just wanna-
property is sold already, Kelly.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Maybe it was available in December though,
It
right?
was available for 2 seconds is what it was. Anyway, go ahead.
Sounds like the property market here in Florida, to be honest, right now as well. Right, so in December of 2020, we had the exchange rate between the euro and dollar at 1.23, which means that property would have cost $438,000. Fast forward to February of this year, the rate had fluctuated. Again, that property is now going to cost the client $427,800. But good news is, because things took time, the exchange rate moved favorably for the client, and now that property is only going to cost them $417,000. So in this instance, the exchange rate fluctuated in such a way that the customer benefited. However, in the same sense that things could move in your favor, they could have gone the opposite direction. So again, it's just important to demonstrate exchange rates are constantly fluctuating, and timing is crucial. And when the exchange rate is favorable, lock it in. I tell people all the time that if they want to gamble, book a trip to Vegas. But if you want to secure the exchange rate and not be concerned that you can't afford that property come time of closing, consider locking in the rate of exchange. It was a beautiful property though, by the looks of it.
Actually, I think it's being signed. The actual signing's happening in a couple of days. So my guess is that the buyers are experiencing very much that right now, that it's costing them less than they thought.
Maybe they're on this call.
Could be.
All right. So how it works, again, as I mentioned, there's absolutely no cost or obligation in establishing an account with Moneycorp. On the next slide, you will see in a moment my contact information. So if you're interested in registering, you can just send me a quick email or give me a call, and I'll gladly send you that registration link. We'll make sure that you aren't charged any transfer fees, but really we just want to help guide you through this process so there's no surprises and you get the most bang for your buck when the time comes. But once you do set up an account and you're ready to actually exchange currency, you would simply have that conversation with your currency exchange dealer. You would agree the rate directly over the phone, right? We're here to provide you with the white glove service. But if you go, I've transferred money 100 times, I don't need to speak to a dealer, I just want to do it myself. Of course, we have the online platform for you to just log in and do everything, but take advantage of the experts. That's what they're there to do. Once you book an exchange rate and you're ready to actually transfer money, again, you would initiate a payment out of your US bank into your Moneycorp US dollar account here in the States. Again, no international transfer. We would facilitate that exchange into euros. And then you simply need to provide us with the Euro bank account information of where you want those euros sent to. And of course, I'll just highlight that we can transfer the funds directly to the notaire or directly to a furniture company or directly to wherever those euros ultimately need to arrive. So if you haven't quite set up your Euro bank account, that's okay. We can still help the process continue to move forward. And once you do set up a Euro bank account, then by all means, we can transfer any funds directly into there. So having an account with Moneycorp is like having a multi-currency bank account where you can send and receive payments to over 120 different currencies, all either online or over the phone with your currency dealer. So the last thing I'll leave you with, as I promised, is just my contact information. That 863 number there is my cell phone number. Feel free to use it. I always have my cell phone close by. And there is my email address. So as I mentioned, if you have any questions on the back of this presentation, or if you want to go ahead and get started, send me an email there and I'll make sure to get that registration link in your inbox. And we hope to have the opportunity of helping many of you with your currency exchange and transfer needs, not only for potential property purchase requirements, but sending payments to friends and family, receiving inheritance, buying other goods internationally, you name it, we've got you covered. So thank you so much for letting me be here today. And I am going to hand it back over to Adrian, I think.
Okay, well, Kelly, I would like to thank you guys for something that happened very recently. We have clients who, for a lot of crazy reasons, have to switch notaires. but they had already sent their deposit to the first notaire. And he can't keep it. He can't transfer it directly to the new
notaire.
So as I understand it, and I think maybe you're the one that's been handling this, you're allowing them to, you are taking the money back from the notaire in euros, holding it, and then going to transfer it back out to the new notaire, which saves them the cost of the transfer completely, the loss or the gain, which I think is fantastic. And I don't know of another broker that would be willing to do that. And I'm not suggesting that everybody do that.
Do it wrong the first time, no.
No, it was particularly special. So I just sort of wanted to thank you for doing that, actually.
Yep, absolutely. Always our pleasure to help. We've got clients that require weird and wonderful things constantly. And the nice thing about working with Moneycorp is we're going to not just put everyone into a cookie cutter situation, but try to work with individuals because we get it. We know that no two notaires, no two title companies, no two buyer is the same. So we'll do whatever we can to help.
Well, I'd also like to make another comment, and that is, and this is kind of one of my little tricks. You know, I hear a lot from people about Transferwise, which is now called Wise. Okay. And they're a big competitor, clearly. But I like to just look at their rate to get an idea of how it compares. And you guys beat their rate every time. I mean, and I made a transfer today with Derek in your Dublin office. Yeah. And I said, well, Derek, let me just check Transferwise just for the hell of it. And of course, the rate I got was still way better.
Yeah, I'll say that Moneycorp's not going to lose your business due to being offered a better rate of exchange elsewhere. We are going to fight for your business and fight to get you the best possible rate of exchange available. And again, with some of the other currency exchange companies out there, you just need to make sure that they offer you the concierge type service that you deserve, right? If you're looking to make a small international payment to a friend or family, and you just want to do this through an online application, then fire away. I'll be honest, there could be another company out there that it's easier to deal with to just send that couple $100. But when you're making an overseas investment and you're sending a substantial amount of money, you want the ability to be able to pick up the phone, ask 100 questions, get expert guidance. And you can't always get that through an app. And I'm not sure if even companies like Transferwise have, you know, a customer service team available for you to.
It's only online.
Yeah. So that's what I would just be cautious of.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So but Brian, I know Brian's up next, isn't he? Or are we open for the Q&A now?
Oh, we've got a nice little Moneycorp video that we were going to play.
Okay.
I'm Tanya Yuniak. I'm head of UK sales for private clients within Moneycorp. There's a fierce loyalty to Moneycorp. Many of the people that I work with and work across the group have been here for 10, 20 years, and there's just that real connection to the business.
My name's Tobias Woodward, and I've been working in the partnerships team at Moneycorp for the last 5 years. We manage a book of about 500 partners on the corporate side of the business.
From the outside, it was always clear to us that Moneycorp were experts in what they do. The thing that made the biggest difference, and ultimately the reason we started working with them and are still working with them, is the way they approach partnerships.
We are a reasonably large business, certainly across the whole group, and we needed to partner with somebody who had a reputation and size that could deal with the volume and value of transactions that we were dealing with.
With the partners that we're working with at the moment, they refer to us for the sheer level of service and reliability that we will offer that client. Many of their clients are dealing with complex property transactions overseas in a foreign currency they're not familiar with.
Moneycorp has always worked hard at being a partner with our company instead of just a service offering. So we've done lots of seminars together going after clients in Paris, Barcelona, Amsterdam, Brussels, all the way over to Sydney and Melbourne. Offering that partnership gives us the opportunity to develop a relationship of how we can work together going forward instead of just looking at finding one transaction at a time.
By referring them to Moneycorp, they know that that client's going to be getting a great exchange rate. But not only that, we will hold their hand from start to finish and make sure that the timing of the transaction is as best as it can be.
Our partners recognise that our clients aren't getting the best rates or service for their foreign exchange or payments, but there are so many small brokers in the market, they don't know who to turn to. What they want to do is refer to someone who is highly credible, experienced and regulated, and that's why they come to us. We trade around 35 billion in client funds every year, and because of that large buying power that we have, we can offer significant discounts on foreign exchange via our 17 liquidity providers.
To be fair, Moneycorp have taken time to understand Baldwin's, our clients, how we operate, and have, I'd like to think, tailored their service to meet our needs and, more importantly, the needs of our clients.
It's mainly about client care. Partners know that when they refer a business to us, we're often going to significantly reduce their costs of foreign exchange and payments, improve operational efficiency, and help reduce risk. Let's say, for an example, we are working with an accountancy firm as a partner. They refer as one of their clients and they are importing from Europe. They've got to buy 3 million euros over the year. What we would do is look to reduce their foreign exchange and payments exposure by about 50% and then introduce a hedging strategy if it was right for that client. What that might do is give them budget certainty for the year, so they always know exactly how much that product is going to cost them.
If you're thinking of working with Moneycorp, it's not for me to tell you how good they are or what they do, because that speaks for itself. The thing I can tell you is that we couldn't want more from their partnership team and the way in which they work with us and our chamber network.
I'm just regularly overwhelmed with the efforts that my team go to make sure that that client is completely and utterly looked after.
I'm most proud of my team in the ability to go above and beyond every time to help their partners, and by doing so helping their clients.
It's not intrusive, it's not in your face, it is seamless, it benefits clients. End of.
That was so nice. Thank you for sharing that. I work closely with Tobias and Tanya. They're wonderful. And that's the nice thing about just having colleagues spread out around the globe. You know, we can't all be experts in every jurisdiction, but we've got local reps on the ground. And that was just a heartwarming video to see. So thank you for sharing.
I think if you take all the compilations of the different videos you have of me, you're going to get all the worst haircuts I've ever had in my life. So you can thank Tanya for that. Patty, do we want to start digging into some of these questions that we have in here?
Sure. I've answered some on the chat already. Let me look. There was one. There's some questions for you, Kelly. Lori Cornwell wants to know, what interest rate does her money earn in a Moneycorp account?
I saw that question come through. That's a great question. Funds held in Moneycorp are actually held in a non-interest bearing account. There's no need to pre-fund your Moneycorp account though. You would simply transfer funds into our account when you're ready to make an exchange. Now, that's not to say that you can't hold funds in an account with Moneycorp, right? So if you've sold your US property and you need a place to set your US dollars until such a time that you're ready to do a transfer, you can use your Moneycorp account for that reason. But again, it's a non-interest bearing account.
Wait, so Kelly, that means in inverse, if it's in euros, you're not charging them interest on that account?
No.
You're looking at it the wrong way, you know? Sorry, I'm an eternal optimist.
Just being transparent.
Okay, Adrian, this is probably one for you.
Okay.
We're moving to Paris now. It's like it's jumping around. We're moving to Paris in August. Will the banks be open?
Will the banks be open? The banks are open now.
Right, but August is vacation month.
Yes, but the banks will be open in August.
Thanks,
I have a feeling that this August isn't going to look like a normal August. Last August didn't look like a normal one either. More people were actually working and not vacationing than before. Yeah, as a result of COVID. But no, the banks are pretty much always open. Yeah.
Okay, Brian, maybe this is a Brian question. What amount of money is the maximum that can be held in a foreign bank before triggering American IRS flags?
Well, there's it's not really an IRS flag. It's a Treasury flag with the F bars. And now I think the big news item this morning was that our president is actually going to put, I think it's $8 billion of funding. I think that was the number, but I might be misquoting it. A lot of money towards the IRS to fight tax evasion. And so this will be a new program aimed at the most wealthy. So this might change year over year. That shouldn't keep us, if you're not cheating on your taxes in any way, shape, or form, from changing your behavior of how much money you're keeping abroad or the such. But the 10,000 euros is the limit to the Treasury, and the Treasury has the right to report that to the IRS. So therefore, that's what's going to throw up that red flag.
Brian, if someone's looking for an offshore account to hide money, France is not the place to do it.
Absolutely not. There's tier 1 countries, tier 2 countries, and tier 3 countries. Any place in Europe is a tier 1 country. So if you're going for tax evasion, we're the wrong group for you.
Right. Don't come to France. No, they watch everything that goes through your bank account. Any large sum of money that comes into your account, you'll get a phone call from your representative at the bank wanting to know, why did you move all that money in there and what are you going to do with it? Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Patty.
A question for Kelly. Is the money in a Moneycorp account insured, such as by the FDIC?
Yes. So Moneycorp banks with major banks. Our US dollar bank account for US clients is actually held with Bank of America. We have other accounts with JP Morgan Chase and other global banks internationally. So yes, you do have that insurance built in with transferring funds to Moneycorp, but there is an added layer of security built in there as well. All funds sent into Moneycorp are held in what's deemed as a client safe account, which effectively means that at no point are those funds Moneycorp's assets. So God forbid the company went down, we can only move that money to where the client dictates us to transfer it to. So yes, your FDIC insurance covered, but you've got kind of that added layer of security built in there with Moneycorp as well.
Great. Okay, this is another Kelly question. What online publications are good for keeping up to date on exchange rates, especially future rate trends?
That's a great question. On Moneycorp's website, you can actually sign up for some of our daily, weekly, or monthly commentary. So I would suggest perhaps that you start there, see if that is enough information to satisfy what you're looking for. But I would say also begin to build a relationship with a currency exchange expert. That way, if you did notice a currency exchange rate movement and you can't quite put your finger on why it perhaps has occurred, you can always pick up the phone and have a conversation with your expert and see if they can't help guide you.
Okay. We have lots, Kelly, you have lots of questions.
Okay, I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe my presentation wasn't
no, it's
clear.
good. They're all really good questions.
Yeah.
So you locked in a currency rate exchange of $1.20 for 2 years.
Okay.
And you're looking to transfer a large sum of money and the currency exchange drops to 118. Can you break the contract and get the 118?
Yes, and it's a conversation that you need to have with your dealer. Effectively, once you're locked into the exchange rate, you're locked into the exchange rate. However, there are situations where we can cancel the contract, rebook it, and as long as there isn't a loss to the company, then we could repurchase the currency for you at the new exchange rate. So the forward contract is really built in to help you negate the negative fluctuation possibilities. But if the rate moved favorably for you, you'd have to have a conversation with your dealer to work out the numbers to see if it'd be advantageous for you to cancel it and rebook it based on interest rates, exchange rates, amount that we have on file, et cetera.
But Kelly, don't you think even though the forward contract allows up to 2 years, that 2 years is just really a long time and it's not normally It's not normally held for 2 years.
Nobody does it. It sounds really good, right? But
Right.
nobody locks in an exchange rate for up to 2 years, except for our corporate clients. I'll tell you, on the corporate side, you can hedge your you know what your overseas expenses are going to be, perhaps annually, biannually. You've got staff to pay overseas, you're importing goods. So I'd say on the corporate side, corporate clients are doing forward contracts for extended periods of time. But personal clients are typically booking forward contracts. I'd say out maybe 1 month, 2 months max. Right. Occasionally you'll see someone do somewhere between 3 and 9 months, but none of us can predict what we're eating for dinner tomorrow, much less what our currency exchange needs are going to be in 2 years' time. So we talk about it a lot, but the reality is, you're right, a lot of private clients don't do a forward contract
Right.
for that long.
For that long, right? Mm-hmm. Patty.
I know, I'm seeing what's next. I mean, it's more currency related.
Well,
A
that's
little bit real estate, a little bit currency. What's the lead time for the down payment, final payment based on a notaire timeline for the 10% needed in closing? When do we have to initiate the transfer so that it's received when needed by the notaire?
I can answer part of that, and then
Yeah.
Adrian, you might be able to answer part of it as well. One thing I was going to mention is, if you are going for a trip out to France to view properties, and there's a chance you're going to find what you want and you're going to be expected to put down that deposit, I would proactively have this account into place with Moneycorp, and I would potentially proactively put US dollars into that Moneycorp account, so that if and when you need them while you're in France, it is an easy phone call to your currency exchange dealer to book that transfer and make the payment. Because the last thing you want to happen is you find the property, you need to make the deposit, you phone your friend at the bank, and the bank says you need to be physically present here. And of course, by the time you travel back to America to initiate that payment, things can have dramatically changed. So I would say to be proactive and be prepared. But with regards to the time between when you need to make the deposit versus the actual closing, maybe I can hand that over to Adrian.
Well, typically when you find a property, even once you've negotiated with the seller and you're about to make the purchase, the notaires have to pull all the documentation together, and that can take about a month. So the truth is that our buyers generally have a lot of time to organize that. And the notaires, it's interesting, the notaires in Paris, they want to have that deposit on escrow before signing the presale agreement. Whereas the notaires in Nice, for example, they only want to have it in place within the 10-day cooling off period after the signing of the presale agreement. So it does give you time to initiate the transfer a little bit better. I mean, however, this last year and a half, all of our clients are buying sight unseen. They don't have to worry about being able to go into their bank to make the transfer, because they're actually buying the property without visiting it live. They're doing everything from the States. So it's been a really interesting time. So
Okay.
I hope that helps answer the question.
Adrian, this is a question for you. In Italy, properties can be bought without in-person visit using power of attorney. Is that possible in France?
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're doing. We're all of our clients sign a proxy, what's called in French a procuration, that enables us or the notaire to sign on their behalf. But I wouldn't buy a property in Italy. That's a risk.
And another property related question from someone who has secured their dual citizenship, French and US, does buying a home become easier?
Nope. There's nothing easy about buying a property in France. It takes a lot of hurdles, which is why it helps to have people like us help you through this insane, entangled process. But having any kind of residency or citizenship in France really makes no difference to the purchase process whatsoever. Doesn't change anything.
And a question for, I believe, Brian, having to deal with taxation. Any idea when the latest news what the latest news is on the rescission of the U.S. government double taxing Americans living overseas.
Well, as we announced a couple times ago, we are part of the Residency-Based Taxation Coalition. Now, for all of you that are moving to France, that are moving there to retire, you should not be the biggest fan of residency-based taxation, because the double taxation agreement between the US and France allows you to pay all your tax over there in the United States. Mm-hmm. So you actually pay less tax than a French pensioner. So we shouldn't complain too loudly. And this is where, essentially, sorry, Kelly, Florida's not going to be the retirement community of the United States. It's soon going to be France once they all start to figure this out. But the RBT Coalition is actually going after bigger advocacy events. I'm on the advisory committee for ACA, the American Citizens Abroad, AmericansAbroad.org. We have our own lobbyist in Mary Louise, who has been on past presentations, so many of you know her. And she is our lobbyist that's in favor of these types of big movements. But sometimes they go in little small ways to try to make things easier. So no exact time frame on RBT, but now we at least have that coalition together, and check out their website.
Great. Okay, where else do we want to go here?
I don't know. We've got 3 minutes, Patty.
No.
Make it a good one.
I want to answer a question, Adrian, about the advantage of owning a French property with an SCI instead of a personal name. It's a little.
Oh, that's a very big conversation, and that really depends on a person's situation. An SCI is a company, a property company. It stands for Société Civile Immobilière. It was designed to assist people, especially the French, in creating ownership via shares, so that the shares could be bequeathed as they wanted to, rather than applying to the forced heirship laws in France. And there are advantages and disadvantages on both sides, and that requires individual conversation. But hopefully that's helpful.
And in the follow-up email, you are going to see the past videos that we've done in the last year, and Adrian gives you the full description of the SCI in the tax edition with Benjamin Pick.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got a couple more minutes.
Okay, another tax-related question. Is there any U.S. tax consequence if living in France for under 90 days as a non-resident? And what if you're a resident in, say, 7 to 8 months per year? This is assuming you don't work in France and maintain your U.S. primary residence. Anybody answer that, Adrian?
You answer it, Brian.
Yeah, we'll play off this, and then Adrian will tell you kind of some of the realities. Now, if you read the double taxation treaty, the double taxation treaty doesn't actually describe the number of days. It says where you do your work and where you lay your head, which can be a little bit subjective at times, because essentially you could own a house and a business in the United States and do all your work from the United States, but spend a little bit more time in France. Now, most notaires or attorneys will say that the real definition of it is where you spend 6 months and a day. And that is typically more how the French government will apply it. So these things tend to be one of those, how you apply for it and how the law is written versus how you actually should do that. So I would actually consult an immigration attorney if your situation really deems it, but typically they'll say 6 months and a day and you're a tax resident in either country.
However, if you become tax resident in France and you're here more than 6 months or 7 months, whatever, and you're retired, France doesn't tax your retirement income or your dividends, or, I mean, you could actually save money by living in France from a tax perspective.
Absolutely. Especially those people that live in those high tax states, New York, California, et cetera. So.
Well, and there's no question for sure we can save them money on their property taxes. Property taxes in France are about 1/10 of what they are in the US.
I feel the more Adrian talks, the more Florida real estate's falling, Kelly.
I don't know. We're doing okay.
So Joanne brings up a good point. Inheritance taxes in France, if you're a tax resident, yes, that's why you need to go cross the border, go down to Italy. You only pay 4% estate taxes down in Italy, or Portugal, you'll pay nothing. So just go to France, enjoy life, and then go die someplace else.
On that note, Brian, we're beyond 7 p.m.
She's cutting me off, you know? You've become my censor.
Well, on that note, okay, to just go die somewhere else, I want to thank everyone for being here and for putting up with all of us in our silly moods this evening. I hope this has been very enjoyable. Do not forget that the third quarter forum, okay, the third quarter North American Expats in France Financial Forum is going to take place on July 29th. So you can tune back in on July 29th and then again on October 27th. So I hope you all will join us then. We're not sure what our topic will be, but I'm sure it's going to be interesting and fun. So goodbye, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you for
Adrian.
having me.
Thank you, Kelly.